Hey everyone. So yesterday I posted a video about a swarm that I had land right up there in that tree there. You can see here on the ground I've got this what I call my swarm catching bucket pole. Uh, Pretty simple. It's literally a bucket mounted on the end of a pole. It's got a bit of a bag in it. I've unfortunately broken buckets in the past, and so the bag is kind of a little softer. Downside to the bag, the bees like to grab and hold onto it, so it's harder to shake them out. I initially used that to get up underneath the cluster that was kind of hanging, excuse my hand here in the camera, kind of hanging out under the tree. Unfortunately, if you don't get the queen when you do that, typically they will return back to the tree. And when they returned back to it, they decided to cluster all around the trunk, which is very difficult to shake them off of because there's no way to scoop them up with the bucket. So, because I was at home, I decided to get what I call my BeeVac, and lots of different variations of BeeVacs if you look on the internet. It's a vacuum for bees, right? And essentially what it does is it acts as a reservoir, a chamber, to go in between your shop vac, your industrial vacuum, and the bees, right? So what, I don't have the vacuum out here right now, but normally the vacuum would be sitting here beside me, and its suction hose, where you normally suck your dirt off the floor, would go into this little opening here, okay? And the whole premise behind this is you are creating an area of negative pressure, right? That's what vacuum is, negative pressure, and you are sucking the bees into that space using negative pressure, but obviously you don't want them to go into your vacuum, right? So I'll explain what that hole is for a minute. So normally that cover there would not be there, right? We'd have our lower portion there on the bottom that I'll explain, and then we'd have a brood chamber with some frames, and then I'd throw the screen on here, okay? So the screen prevents the bees from getting sucked into the vacuum, right? And then, let me lift this up. Excuse me, I'm doing this without a tripod. Then we have this upper portion here, and what this allows you to do is you hook your vacuum here, which puts this box under negative pressure. Okay, so the vacuum is sucking into here. This whole thing is under negative pressure, and you can actually adjust how much pressure you have by opening and closing a little flap on the top. I find this one doesn't actually seal incredibly well. I've only used this a few times. So yesterday what I was doing is just putting painter's tape over top of the hole to kind of regulate how much suction I had. You can see painter's tape down here on the bottom as well. The problem with this, right, is there's air gaps and air leakage, and without any tape around the joints, there's actually enough air leakage that even with that hole completely sealed off, it's very difficult to suck the bees in. So what I suggest, if you're going to build one, what I suggest you do is carry a roll of tape with you. You can get complicated and put foam sealing strips and all kinds of stuff on there, and as you know, that stuff breaks down, and if you're storing this in a shed, mice are going to get into it. It's far more convenient to carry a roll of tape with you. Painter's tape, obviously nice, won't stick to the paint. Duct tape is going to peel paint off, and you can see a bit of damage from times I've used duct tape. And yeah, you can just throw a rim of tape around. So yeah, that's our top portion, right? And then we have our screen here. Now, of course, I have a hive of bees here right now with a cover on. The nice part about the screen, when you normally have a screen on here, you notice that little eyelet on the bottom. When everything is all said and done and you've sucked all your bees into here, you can take that outer unit off, whatever you want to call these things. Take that upper portion off, you're left with a screen. You can throw your ratchet strap back around it just to secure everything and seal up that now entrance at the front. And now you can move the bees, and they've got lots of ventilation, right? As long as it's not too cold out. They've got tons of ventilation, which is good because they're super stressed because you just suck them into a box. And yeah, you don't have to worry about overheating your hive, right? The only downside to all of this is you need some sort of plug that will cover that hole, right? Ironically enough, I use a lot of my inner covers now as I'm transitioning to it, use these little plastic caps, and I think I have one here in my pocket as well. I do, haha. There you go. there's a plastic cap. It is just big enough to sort of fit in that hole and mostly seal. So yesterday on another one that I did, I guess I had 2 swarms yesterday. You can stick that plug in, throw a piece of tape across it so it doesn't fall out, and it lets you kind of move the bees around if you have to move them around, right? That's the basic idea of it. So I am going to take this all apart. I'm going to pause the video and take it all apart here. But what's going on inside this box is, you know, it's just a box that I've put a bottom lip on, bottom sheet on, and then actually I've built a little ramp in there. The idea being, as the bees get sucked in, if they're coming in at a high velocity, you don't want them smacking into the back of the box. Try to be nice to them, so I've actually got a little ramp in there. I find using this, you know, larger diameter shop vac type hose, the bees aren't moving very quickly. You know, beekeeping is a business of necessity and coming up with things as on the fly, and you don't have to use that size of hose. Central vac hose, if you happen to have a length of central vacuum hose, it's nice and smooth on the inside. It's actually a better choice than this one. There's, you know, pool cleaning hose and clear hose. There's all sorts of solutions you can come up with. Larger diameter, smaller diameter. When you get into the smaller diameter hose, that's where being able to regulate the air pressure is a little more important, because that smaller hose is going to put more stress on the bees as they get sucked in, right? Just because there's less space available for them to occupy. That's the basics of it. I'm going to try to pause this, and because I need to take that bottom off and get them set up on this bottom board here. You can see they're orienting to this spot. I'm going to just let them orient here for the day, and then I'm going to move them in a day or so. And unfortunately, they belong to a hive over there that decided it doesn't want to be a hive anymore. So, or, you know, wants to split up and go make another one. So I'm going to pause this, and I'll show you the bottom here in a few minutes. All right, just a little pause there, quick and dirty, kind of taking this box off. You can see I've dumped a bunch of bees on the ground here, and they're crawling into this hive. Convenient, I've got a nice piece of rubber mat on the ground for them to work with. You'll notice there are some dead bees on the ground. Not all of those bees are alive. You do kill some bees when you do this. Part of it, you know, just tumbling down this hose. If I can get a shot inside that hose, probably not. As I don't know if you can tell or not, that hose is effectively corrugated on the inside. The way it looks on the outside is what it looks like on the inside. It's not lined. Some of the hoses you get, like central vac hose, is smooth on the inside, so it's much easier on the bees. The bees don't get bumped around and jostled as they travel down the hose. The other advantage to the smooth lined hose is you don't tend to get blockages and clumping. Yesterday I had this thing clump up on me in one of the hives. So yeah, you can see a couple of dead bees on the ground, but I'm going to open this box up here in a second. This is actually this was a very large swarm. So, you know, all things considered, I didn't lose very many bees out of the entire size of the hive. So, that's my little suction entrance, as whatever you want to call that. That's where the suction hose that goes, my suction hose that's going up into the tree, right, connects here. And you see, I was saying I built a little ramp. I threw some silicone on just to make it a little smoother and seal things all in. Again, you know, your experience might be different than mine. You might have access to different things. You're going to choose to build things differently. I used a deep hive body and just cut the hive body down. The deeper portion on the bottom, the shallower portion, is that piece that goes on top. Unfortunately, I had to do it upside down just for handhold clearances and things to avoid the handholds, at least on that box. And then, so unfortunately my handhold is upside down, which makes lifting this a bit of a pain in the butt. I think I was thinking about that when I made it. I'm not sure. Maybe I just forgot about it when I made it and cut it the wrong way. Anyways, I've got some eyelets here to throw a strap on. Not necessarily the best setup, because this puts a lot of stress on the wood when you're cinching that strap down tight. I'm sure there's better ways to do this and other things. Those are what I had at the time. So yeah, that's the basics of it. And just to get an idea of how strong this swarm is, while I do this one-handed on my knees here, I'm just going to give them just a little smoke. You can hear, right? They're trying to tell everybody, because I turned the entrance around. The entrance was pointed the other way, so there. just telling everybody what's going on. Hey ladies, here's where we are. That's not stuck on because it was just put last night. You look at all those bees in there. There's tons and tons of bees. This is a very big swarm, right? It is now the middle of August. Today's August 15th. Lots of people will say this hive's never going to stand a chance. They're not going to survive the winter, especially not here in Northern Ontario. They're never going to get all that comb drawn out. I'm not too concerned about that because my plan is to take this hive and drop it onto a hive over there. Probably not the one that they swarmed from, but I've got a couple of smaller, weaker hives over there that could use a boost. And yeah, so that's what that'll get used for. I mean, those bees have value, so let's try to use them as best we can. Alright, if you have any questions, I'm going to post this to Beekeepers of Northern Ontario is the group that I run on Facebook. But I'm going to post this up on YouTube, and if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks, guys.